I'm Teresa Yuan.
And I'm Louise Simpson, and this is Maroon TV News. On Monday, April 20th, students living in Blackstone, Breckenridge, Broadview, and McLean residence halls received an email telling them that their dorms would close after June of 2016. The email, signed by Dean of the College, John Boyer, and Vice President for Campus and Student Life, Karen Warren Coleman, stated that this decision was made in coordination with the opening of North Campus and aligns with the university's long-term strategy for college housing, which includes strengthening the resident master model and housing more college students closer to campus.
In addition to the 4 satellite dorms closing, the university also announced its plan to shift new graduate residence hall into the site of the Harris School of Public Policy earlier this year. Though the email stated that students in affected dorms would have the opportunity to move to Campus North as a community, students were told that each of the 9 affected houses would be receiving new names in the transition.
Administrators David Clark, Assistant Vice President for Campus Life and Assistant Dean in the college, and Sophia Chaknis, Director of College Housing, visited each of the affected houses in order to discuss the dorm closures with students. Many students felt they were left out of this decision-making process and worried for the future of house culture on campus. Many houses organized before meetings to discuss how to approach the situation.
Though Clark and Chaknis asked that Maroon TV not record the meetings with individual houses, we spoke with a few students from Palmer House to get their opinions.
I am Andrew Santarella Doyle. I am from Randolph, New Jersey. I am in Palmer House, and I am a first year. I was kind of disappointed with the fact that they wouldn't really promise to anything right now, and I understand from their point of view why that could be something that they wouldn't be able or want to do necessarily, but the lack of concrete promises or definite accountability was a little disappointing to me. I definitely feel that they were responsive to the questions. They definitely had some of them before, just by the fact that they had very calculated and precise answers that seemed sort of formulated ahead of time. But I think that in terms of the questions that they genuinely couldn't have prepared for, they were very honest with us, and I do respect that. And while they didn't have a specific answer to every question, they did acknowledge times that they didn't know what was going to happen or what the circumstances may be, but they were also very open to allowing change and letting us have a role in those decisions, which I think was very good. So we, as a house, had a meeting just to decide what questions we need to ask, what we already know, what we want to know, and what we really did is just formulate a list of questions, kind of have a little theme, almost like the outline of an essay. And I think that formatting was very productive to the conversation because it kept things moving, they were all related, so it kind of just bounced and smoothly transitioned from one thing to the next and really helped us make sure that we didn't overlook anything that we really pertinent or anything. We got most of what we needed.
We reached out to the news department in order to coordinate interviews with Clark and Chaknis, but did not receive a response.
Clark and Chaknis also visited an InterHouse Council meeting last Tuesday where they discussed with elected student leaders, many of whom felt that they were never consulted. Though this meeting was closed to the non-representatives and the media, we spoke with the IHC president, Natalie David, in order to find out how IHC was involved.
So my name is Natalie David. I'm the president of InterHouse Council, and InterHouse Council is a group of 38 representatives, one from each house. Then we have an 8-member executive committee, and we kind of serve this, provide feedback through a variety of mechanisms to assist the college and the university in providing services to students. So in particular, we do work with housing and dining groups, facilities, transportation. IHC has not been involved in the decision-making process. We were notified at the same time that all of the other affected students were notified. Some of us, not all of us, have been involved in the design of Campus North. So from the initial stages all the way through furniture selection more recently, but that's the extent of IHC's involvement in the Campus North project. I don't think there are really words to articulate how disappointed and frustrated I was. I don't think it was particularly a great surprise that it happened because that seemed to be the direction that they were going. For the specific dorms that they closed, I was surprised that all of them were included in the move to Campus North. I thought that they might stay open until another dorm was built beyond that time. And I was particularly disappointed about the decision to rename houses with, or essentially put house names for sale as part of the university's fundraising efforts.
Plans to build North Tower were known even before the removal of Pierce Tower was finished, and O8s were told that some satellite dorms may close at a panel with administrators before O Week. However, this decision still came as a shock to many students who decided to form the Save Our Satellites movement in order to keep the smaller dorms open and preserve the house culture and original names in the shift to Campus North.
This movement is led by a council of 9, consisting of student leaders from each of the 9 houses. We spoke with Aaliyah Bixby-Dreesen, one of the council members from McLean, to get her thoughts.
All right, so I'm here with Aaliyah today. If you could just introduce yourself and talk about your role a little bit.
Yeah. So my name is Aaliyah. I'm a second year in the college. Of course, I live here in McLean, and I act as one of our representatives to the council that's formed for the Save Our Satellites movement.
Tell me a little bit about, I guess this is a general question so you can break it down a little, but what are you guys fighting for? I know it's like the value of small house culture, but what does that mean as opposed to having a bigger, homogenous South structure?
Yeah, so there are a lot of benefits to small houses. I think one of them is that there can really be an intensity of house culture that you don't get as much when you're interacting with lots of other houses. McLean, for instance, is isolated from campus. We're only one house here, so you really get to know people in McLean. When you come back from campus every day, these are the people that you hang out with. So there's a really strong house culture that develops because of that. There's also a lot of unique architecture that really affects the way house culture develops. Like, for instance, here in McLean, we have 3 big common rooms and 1 small common room. And it's right there when you open, when you walk up the stairs, the dining room and our headquarters, as we call them. And so house culture is really visible. It's right in the path every day when you walk in. And for that reason, I think we get a lot more participation. I'm sure that houses in Max or South have house culture, but I think it's a little bit more confined to a smaller section of each house.
I don't know, have you heard anything about RM model versus non-RM model?
Yeah, so one of the things that they talked about when they came to speak to us about this decision was that, they think the RM model is really important and something that's unique about Chicago housing. So our previous RH was an econ professor, and so one of the things we talked about was having a faculty resident master.
Yeah.
And so we've definitely had faculty RHs in the past, and even our current RH, who is not faculty, puts in a lot of work to bring in faculty speakers. I think this week or last week, I don't know, we had 2 in 1 week come by to talk to us about the more academic side of things. And so I think a lot of the roles that they expect the RM to play can absolutely be played by RHs. And from what I know of people who do have RMs, oftentimes the only thing they do is throw a fancy study break once a quarter, which our RHs also do. So to me, the justification that the RM system is really important kind of falls flat, especially because they didn't ask us they didn't ask anyone on campus, so far as I know, whether the RM system was something that's important to us as students.
There's been a lot of talk about the university wants to homogenize housing culture so that kids get the same experience no matter what house they're in. What are the cons of that I guess the Council of 9 is looking into?
Well, I think that one of the things that makes Chicago different from its Ivy League peers is, we have a certain, people like to say quirkiness. I don't like the word quirkiness, but there's a uniqueness to the student body that I find really important. And I think part of that is because people who come here often choose Chicago over Ivy League because of things like we have lots of different houses, and you can go on the housing website and learn about their cool traditions. And people don't care as much about whether your room has air conditioning, or some people don't, right? And those people have a space. And also in these smaller dorms, people, there's a distinguishable culture for each house. Whereas if you're choosing something in South, you're going to get put in some random houses. You're choosing a building. Right. But in McLean, you're choosing McLean. Yeah. And so you can, there's self-selection, so you get people who want singles, people who want to be away from campus, and that does affect the character of the house.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the outreach that you guys have done so far. I guess to both at the admin level, student activist level. I know there's the town hall meeting coming up.
Yeah, so we're we haven't done a whole lot of direct outreach with admin yet because we're trying to sort of organize. Of course, we've had a lot of contact with David and Sophia, who were the representatives sent to us for these meetings. But as we discovered quickly, both of them were hired in October, so they were not part of this this decision. And so there's only so much help they can give us, and only so much communication we can do with them. You know, we have scheduled a meeting with Karen Warren and Coleman in the next couple weeks, and she was one of the housing people involved with this decision. But we of course are continuing to think of ways that we can productively meet with the administration. With students, we're having a town hall meeting this Monday, as you mentioned. And that's really just going to be a place for students to gather in person and talk to each other. And we have invited, I believe, 21 members of the administration, including Dean Boyer and Karen Warren Coleman as well. And we hope they attend. We don't know yet. But it's really for students to talk to each other, to ask any remaining questions they have in the administration, to air grievances. Things like that.
Right. I mean, what has the dialogue been like with admin? Because I know a couple people were concerned that at the house meetings, like David and Sophia weren't taking notes, and it felt like students weren't being heard in that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, my impression was that they were really sent here to placate us, and it hasn't worked. I don't get the sense like they have any intention to do much about this decision. I think they're interested in figuring out what kind of cosmetic changes they can make to get us to shut up. But you know, we're not planning on shutting up anytime soon. I mean, they've made a few offers. I believe Sophia came to our house table this past Thursday. I wasn't there. I was studying in Harper, but she was like, "Well, I've never been to any of these houses. I've never been. I ask people to invite me all the time," and so I was like, "Well, why don't you come to our house table?" So I don't know how that conversation went, but I mean, generally we've been met with the same lines. They talk about parity a lot, and they emphasize the inevitability of this decision. They draw on historical precedent that is somewhat fudged. I mean, they talk about how this is just like what happened with Shoreland closed, but it was announced that Shoreland wasn't closed in 2003, and then it was closed in 2009. There were 6 years for people to prepare for the move. And I know that a lot of houses were renamed, but I'm fairly certain that they were able to keep their names until they were renamed. Now all the houses, there are not donors picked out already, so all of these 9 houses, becoming 8, are going to have transitional names. Things like Midway, or the Midway house has a transitional name right now and still doesn't have a donor. So we could be looking at another 4 years of having these houses that have this great house history that's tied in many ways to a name, but instead erasing that for a placeholder, which seems somewhat silly.
I'm Louise Simpson.
I'm Teresa Yuan, and this has been Maroon TV News. Check back next week for more updates.